He called me and he said the words like, Lila has type 1 diabetes. And I was like, what? And he's like, oh no, that's not even the bad part. I call it the pre-diabetes to the post. Like you're two different people.
I knew you'd remember every single detail from that day, down to everything you did that day and everything she did.
I closed the bathroom door and locked like the boys out because I didn't want them to see me so upset. And I just felt so helpless. I was running up and down Chapel Street with my boyfriend, who's now my husband.
Like, hey, yeah, that on. He stayed around.
Her eyes were like rolling back in her head. I just remember screaming at him across the pool going, you have to take it.
So today we're joined by a special guest, founder and CEO of Type 1 Foundation, Ange Macauley. Ange developed a not-for-profit organisation that supports those living with type 1 diabetes. This is quite close to Ange's heart because her daughter was diagnosed at just 9 years old. So today we're going to talk to Ange about all of her lane changes and how the foundation was born. So welcome, Ange.
Welcome.
Thank you, ladies. I'm so happy to be here today and I feel very honoured to be asked, so thank you.
Oh, thank you for
It's a
joining
pleasure
us.
to have you on. So tell us, what was your career? What was your life? What were you doing before type 1 and before Lila's diagnosis?
I was like, when I was preparing for this, I thought it was an interesting one because so much is probably Lila to her diagnosis to be why I do what I do. Because anybody that has been involved in the charity space or not-for-profit, you don't do this, you don't get involved in this unless you've got the passion, lived experience, but also wanting to daily get up every day and help people and wanting to serve the community. And yeah, I do honestly speak about it a lot where my probably story when I was thinking about what to say probably begun back in school days. And I distinctly remember a time in year 12 where I was sitting in accounting class. I was that person who did business, economics, and all those things that I'm not good at. And I really actually was quite creative and probably should have gone down that angle. But I went to a elite private Melbourne girls' school, Catholic girl. And I'm one of 8 kids, the middle child, probably a bit of a people pleaser. And so I did all the right things and was studying to become potentially an accountant like all my brothers and my dad are. And that was not me. And I just remember sitting in class and going, none of this matters. Like people matter and feelings matter and stuff. And I had a bit of a full-on upbringing where my brother, who's just 12 months older than me, had a severe drug addiction, schizophrenia, and I lived and breathed that every day. And it was scary, unpredictable, and coming home every day was like you never knew what was going to happen, whether the police were there or whether he had a heroin addiction when I was doing my year 12. And just going to school every day was really difficult and getting through those times. And living with mental illness and something like that was so unpredictable. It makes you realise that nobody knows what's going on in other people's lives. And being in that elite Melbourne private school time, I think people was all about image and what you had and what you looked like. But I always used to think that no one really knows what's going on in other people's family.
Yeah. That's a lot to be growing, like when you're in year 12. That is a lot to be dealing with.
It really was.
And your parents probably had to put a lot of effort into your brother, and you had 8 of you, you said?
Yeah, there was 8 of
so
us. Yeah.
You probably had to suppress your feelings to a degree.
Yeah, and I got really good at doing that. So I was the one that went under the radar.
You're the people pleaser.
Yeah.
Yeah.
And even like back when we did cats, like year 12, my brother pawned our family computer and I remember I had my year 12 English cat on that and I was running up and down Chapel Street with my boyfriend, who's now my husband.
I like how you added that on.
I was going to say
he gets a
boyfriend at the
mention.
time, but
He stayed around.
he hung around. And we were trying to get the computer back from cash converters in Chapel Street. And just stuff like that. And then I obviously got it back. And I don't know, I just think that having a charity for me is just, I every day have people that come to us from all different walks of life. And they have one thing in common, which is type 1, but that's not the only thing. The people live with so much. And I think being able to understand humans and from a really deep level probably come from that upbringing.
Absolutely. You
Yeah.
can see that. It makes a lot of sense now, like how you've become the person you've become just based off you running up and down the street in year 12, trying to get a computer back from cash converters. That's like a level of life experience so many people will never have and never understand.
Yeah. And I think it also makes you understand, like I said, that I'm just driven by people and helping others probably comes from that moment. And then, yeah, like I grew up in a Catholic family, so I believe the faith and all those sorts of things. Like I went to church every Sunday with my family, all 8 of us, like crazy parents that are like,
Do you still go to church today?
no, and I didn't
She's
put
not
my
such a-
kids through that.
No.
But
Such
getting
a good
8
Catholic
kids, like,
girl.
what were my parents thinking? Getting 8
Yeah.
kids dressed. Looking
I can't
beautiful.
even do 3.
Do you feel like being in a family that grew up going to church made you a bit of an empath, like a bit more of a people person?
Yeah, I think the values definitely instilled something where the giving back and putting others first. And I do believe those values were good. And I do believe, again, that whole thing of having the perfect family of 8 of us all dressed perfectly is also was something that definitely my morals are questioned of that looking
Looking
like
the part.
something
Image. Yeah.
on the outside. But again, like getting my brother who was already having a lot of behavioural issues. Now we know, like, you know, I'm 45, so no one was diagnosed with autism, ADHD and stuff back in our day. And obviously those things were obviously what he was dealing with. I think now what we know more.
Yeah, in hindsight now, there's a lot
Yeah.
more awareness around all of those
Yeah.
issues. Yeah. Yeah.
That, and then I think growing up with mental illness definitely made me realise. And then when I hit my 20s, I think I went through school and probably just sailed through, was the people pleaser, did year 12 and everything, and then fell into fashion because fashion was the creative sort of all coming out, where I made jewellery and sold it at all the markets and created my own fashion label throughout Melbourne, like places like St Kilda and Brunswick Street, and it was super fun. And I used to describe it like going into your flow, like when you're in your flow, you know you're doing what you love and the time just goes away.
That a side hustle? So you were studying
Yeah.
still
Yeah.
at the same time? Yeah.
But I could never stay at university because everything I'd study, I did education to be a teacher and I left. It just never fulfilled me.
It wasn't the right thing.
Yeah. I'm definitely undiagnosed ADHD.
Speaking of.
Yes.
Bit of that. We all self-diagnose.
I'm pretty sure everyone now in their 40s, like perimenopause, I think we've all
Yeah,
got a little bit of
totally.
ADHD in us.
And I think anyone in this field of entrepreneurship as well, it sort of
Yes.
tends to lead to meeting people in the bit neurospicy.
Yeah. But we wouldn't be who we were if we weren't like that. And we wouldn't have the success in the businesses that we had
Totally.
without it.
We're in lots of lanes.
Yes.
Yes.
And don't tell me that I can't be.
Yes. And the changing lanes is okay too, because it's okay to go from the different.
So
And
where
go
did
back.
you land? So you're at uni, you've got your side hustle. What was next?
I left uni and went and moved over to London and went overseas and fell into hairdressing. So that's when I
Completely.
Fits on that. Did your husband come with you or boyfriend at the time?
I broke up with him.
Oh, so there's a breakup in there as well.
Yes. But in that as well, I will track back. Prior to that, the Sydney Olympics were happening in Sydney and it was quite an amazing time. And my dad loves all that stuff. So he took all of us kids to the Sydney Olympics.
That's so cool.
It was really cool, but unfortunately I had a really serious sexual assault happen to me at the Olympics. And again, talking about the whole changing lanes and things and why you are what you are. And it was a really serious situation where I was trapped in a house with some overseas athletes and sexually assaulted. It was a very serious situation.
And you would have been so young.
I
It would have
was
been so
19.
scary.
Oh,
Yeah.
Yeah, and that completely changed my life.
Of
And
course.
I then found myself in a situation of mental health, eating disorders, and hence my trip to London was an escapism to try and get away from.
Like a reset almost.
Yeah, there.
Yeah.
I broke up with my boyfriend that I'd been with since I was 15, who'd gone through all of my childhood and everything, my teen years, and left him. And the situation obviously went through courts and it was quite a full-on serious thing, but I found myself in a really serious mental health battle myself. So going from bulimia to anorexia to 3 or 4 years of serious health concerns. Fashion again saved me, was like
Well, that's
my
your
little
creative-
creative.
You
Yeah.
needed that outlet.
Yes.
Yeah.
And I'd come back to that.
So your escape to the UK, was that because you didn't feel you had the support you needed at the time, and then that sort of led you to supporting people in the foundation today? Or do you just feel like you needed to just break away for
I
a
think
minute?
I was just running from my feelings and what was going on in my life at the time.
London was just an easy option for you.
Yeah,
No
my
one
sister
knew
and-
anything. You just be you again.
Yes, I think that was it. And I fell into hairdressing over there and became a hairdresser doing my apprenticeship. But I'll be really honest, I actually couldn't do hairdressing because there were so many mirrors. And when you have an eating disorder, you can't look at yourself in the mirror. And so I found it really difficult to be a hairdresser and work in that field. And that was actually the only reason I left, was just that I couldn't see myself all day, every day. You have to be prepared to be washing people's hair. And yeah, so then moved back and went back into fashion and was working and everything. And then I fell pregnant with Lila.
So obviously somewhere along the way you found your husband again. So you broke it up with him and you're back.
So my husband actually surprised me and didn't really surprise me, but I didn't know he was going to do it. He actually came and he knew how sick I was. And my mum and dad knew how unwell I was. And I was very unwell over in London. And he came and flew over and saved me, basically.
He was like, you can break up with me, but I'm not actually going to
never let you go.
But bad luck, lady. I'm coming to rescue you and you're going to be mine.
Funny dude. He's
That's
a good
really
man.
sweet story.
Yeah, and I ended up leaving actually before him. He ended up staying in London and I came back and got my life together a little bit more, got some help, got the mental health support, saw a psychologist for the first time and really delved in. And that's when I found things like running and things for my mind that would help me. And then we moved out together and we're living in Richmond and I fell pregnant with Lila. So there you go, changing lanes.
Yeah. Well, you've had lots of changes. And how old were you at this point?
22.
I feel like you had about 6 late changes
I-
just in there.
I did.
Yeah.
Big 3.
And you still weren't really settled in that lane yet. You hadn't actually settled into a lane, so to speak.
No, and I think at the time, like growing up in the community I was in, everyone was at university, getting amazing careers and developing themselves, all my girlfriends and friends around us. And I was like at home at that time, wiping bums and night feeding, and I loved it. I was like, I found myself when I had Lila.
Lila
Like,
found you.
yeah, she saved. Yeah. I love being a mum. I never found it hard. I still don't. I really do enjoy that natural. I love being at home with my kids. I always needed a bit of an outlet, like, creatively. But yeah, I found peace being a mum.
Amazing.
So just before we head into the diagnosis, so just a bit of awareness around type 1. So just some facts for those who don't know much about type 1. So there is no cure for type 1 diabetes. 145,000 people in Australia live with type 1 diabetes, which isn't really that many. It is an autoimmune disease and it's pretty common to be diagnosed while you're quite young. So 4 to 7 is a common age, and then also 10 to 14, but adults still can be diagnosed as well.
Yeah.
So there is a little bit of a lack of awareness around the symptoms. You want to tell us a little bit about the symptoms that we should be looking for?
Yeah, I mean, there's a lot of symptoms, so it's really difficult to say a few, but really those symptoms all have to be together. So you can have the blurred vision, but you potentially might need to go get your eyes checked, or you can be going to the toilet, but you might have incontinence and other issues. But if you have those symptoms, especially the tiredness, the thirst, the getting thinner, and needing to go to the toilet, and they're all at once, then there's the high percentage of you having type 1 diabetes is obviously very high. And the likelihood of developing type 1 in childhood is higher than it is as you get older, but it's still there. We are still getting more and more diagnoses in the 30s, 40s and 50s. Actually, that age group's actually rising through. And a lot of those people are misdiagnosed to type 2. And we're finding as well that they're getting misdiagnosed as if they have type 2 and then obviously ended up quite unwell with DKA, which is diabetic ketoacidosis. It's when the blood, obviously glucose reaches really high levels in the blood system, and it's scary and life-threatening. Lila, are we talking about that?
Yeah, let's
Yeah,
go to
let's
Lila.
tell us about it. Tell us about that moment for you?
Okay. Lila's diagnosis was a really scary time again because we didn't know anybody with type 1 diabetes, and not many people do. And I don't think you knew anyone really. Did you?
No, so when Ella was diagnosed, we knew a child that was 18, but we didn't actually know them very well. We just knew there was a kid at the school. So we didn't actually know anything about it. And all those symptoms I did not know about. It's very rare to know someone.
It is to have the genetic aspect of, obviously, plus they think there's obviously genetics, environmental. That's actually not meaning if you've got a mother or a father with type 1 of developing it yourself, is there's a percentage there, but it's not 100%. We didn't have anyone with type 1 in our family. I had so when Lila was diagnosed, I'll take you and give you a little bit of a snapshot of where we were in our life. Living in Geelong, and we had Lila 9, Leo was 4, Paddy was 2, and Ollie was 4 weeks old. And prior to probably 3 months to her diagnosis, she started displaying quite symptoms of what we got diagnosed as anxiousness. So like at school, was refusing to go to school, high anxiety. We'd taken her to the doctor and then subsequently to the psychologist. Just not herself, like off, just not being right. And then she started saying every time she'd eat, she'd get a sore stomach. And so we stopped giving her sausage rolls or fish and chips because that was her blood sugar.
Lactose.
Yeah.
Mine goes.
Yes. So basically what I think was happening was the sugars are spiking. So basically what happens is the pancreas slowly stops producing insulin. It happens in a very slow rate. And then at the end, it happens very quickly. We'd taken her to the doctor 3 times in about 2 weeks. And that was when Ollie was only probably 2 weeks old. 1 week old, and that was obviously not a fun experience having 3 little
children at the doctors.
Yeah, and those are the days when there was no telehealth and you were literally dragging all the kids and there was a toy box in the corner. And
So 3 times.
Yes.
And they didn't mention type 1
No.
at all? No pinpricks?
No.
No.
Never
What were
got
they checking for?
Once was a virus, so she had displaying symptoms of like very lethargic. And in hindsight, the teacher, her school teacher in grade 4, told me that she was falling asleep in class. But they thought that it was because of the new baby in the house.
She's being kept up.
Yeah.
The baby crying. Yeah.
But as we know, not even your husband sometimes gets up.
Yeah.
Mine didn't anyway.
No.
So I didn't obviously know that was one of the symptoms. She also started wetting the bed. And I'd mentioned those things at the doctor, that she was out of sorts. She was refusing to go to school because when she was at school, she wasn't allowed to keep refilling her drink bottle because the teacher kept thinking that she was just trying to go to the toilet, but really she was dying of thirst.
Funnily enough, the same thing with Ella, now that I'm thinking back. They always assume the kid is just wanting to get out of class.
Yeah.
And Ella had been going to the toilet like 8 times a day.
Oh.
And I think the teachers were getting a little bit mad because she was like, I need to go to the toilet. And they're like, again. And that
They
was
never
how
believed the child.
That's how we found Ella's, that's how we got her diagnosed, because of that. And I didn't even know that was a symptom.
Yes.
So, yeah.
And you don't know, because you don't know what you don't know, right? And when you're a mum and you obviously trying to advocate for your child and the doctors are telling you, oh, it's just in your head. Oh, because I remember getting told by the doctor, oh, look, not that I was a hypochondriac mother, but it was just more like, oh, you just need to go see us, like taking us down that route of mental health. Which is great, because I think back then there wasn't probably a lot of that either, where they were trying to write you out the mental health care plan. But yeah, so I think we did all the right things. Probably could have done more if we knew more. But we went up to holidays. So the night before we were due to leave to Queensland, I felt really unsure about going because Lila was very unwell in bed. And we took it back to the doctor, and the doctor was like, you just need a holiday. You probably just had a really big year. It was December. The weather was hot. Lila was drinking heaps of water. But when we did get up to Queensland and got on that holiday, beautiful big pool at a resort in Queensland, and she didn't want to get in the pool. She just wanted to lay on the sun lounge next to me. And I'll never forget, it was like this moment of the sun coming through the palm trees, and that was glistening, and it was going, she was laying here, I was breastfeeding Ollie, and her eyes were like rolling back in her head, and Leaf was in the pool, my husband, with the boys, and I just remember screaming at him across the pool going, you have to take her to the doctor.
Something's not right.
Yeah.
Something is like that motherly.
That must have been
an
so
instinct.
scary.
Yeah.
Oh, it was just the unknown of praying that
happening?
she's going to be okay, but
And
gosh,
probably thinking the worst as well.
Yeah.
Like, is she going to, I don't oh, like some sort of seizure or coma.
Yeah.
What is wrong?
I just knew that it was really not right. I can't even tell you any other way than just, gosh, this is really scary. And then he went and got the baby pram, which was like one of those double mountain buggies. And
One of those.
yeah, mountain buggy.
Got one of those.
I love it. I still miss mine. And he put her in it and was like, she couldn't walk. She was so skinny and she was so sick. And he rushed her up. The appointment wasn't till the afternoon. And he got there. I was back with the hotel. I went back up to the room with the boys. And they got into he tells the story, he got into the centre and the receptionist looked at Lila and was like, oh my gosh, and brought her around and don't know why or how, no one else had finger pricked and just got the finger pricker out and also the blood pressure machine and were just doing obs like as she was in the pram. They'd asked the people in the waiting room to please step outside, called the ambulance, and then they finger pricked and they were like, oh gosh, she's off the charts.
So
and
Leaf's at the medical centre on his own.
Yep.
Is this
You're
like getting relayed all
GP
this information with the 3 kids? Your
Yep.
hands are tied. You've got a
Yep.
newborn.
Yep.
You must have been so scared.
Oh, it was like, I remember the moment like when he called me and he said the words like, Lila has type 1 diabetes. And I was like, what? And he's like, oh, no, that's not even the bad part. She's on an hour off a coma. You don't know
imagine.
how sick she... And I was like, and I remember like with Ollie, like I closed the bathroom door and locked like the boys out because I didn't want them to see me so upset. And I just felt so helpless and just, it was just the toughest thing ever of being like in that position as a mum of not knowing what was going on. And then they're like, we've got 2 ambulances.
And it's out of your control. Everything's out of your control in that moment. There's nothing you can do.
Nah.
And you're back at
Except-
the hotel with
Yeah, I
with
couldn't
your
even go
newborn
there.
baby.
Yeah.
Yeah.
And I obviously didn't have any family or in Queensland. It was so...
And you weren't at home.
couldn't call
Just
my
to-
mum and be like, can you come over and
Help.
take
Yeah.
the kids? Didn't know anyone in the Gold Coast at that time. Probably the most, alone time. It was cruel. It was actually like, why couldn't it have just happened at home? Like when we could have just called, my mum would have driven up from Melbourne 2 seconds. And then, so what happened was they were like, oh, the university hospital in Queensland had just opened. Not sure whether we can take such a serious case. We're going to probably airlift her to Melbourne or to Brizzy. In the end, they did, and she was okay with the insulin. So it's basically, I know all this in hindsight now, is how the body reacts because basically what happens is the organs all start to shut down. I'm not a doctor, so I'm just giving you the base. And it's what your pH levels are. It's a very chemical thing. It's a balancing act here. And so she was in ICU and I got to see her on the 3rd day of, so it was just,
Wow.
Leaf was just
What?
non-stop.
Time
As
must
a
have been
mother.
going so slow for you.
Oh, it was horrific. It was just easier. We just worked it out that because I was breastfeeding, the 2 boys was 2 and 4 boys.
They're
Like,
little. Yeah.
you can't keep them still. It was just easier. We just worked it out where it was like he had this little routine with Lila. He would do all this stuff in hospital and I would be back with the boys. And then on the 3rd day, I got in a taxi with the baby Bjorn on and the 2 little boys and went over to see her. So we ended up being in hospital for over 10 days. I think it was like nearly 11 days by the time we got out.
Such a
And then
long
on the
time.
ward. And then I remember leaving hospital and just going, oh my gosh, like I know you felt this. How am I going to keep this child alive? Because you're just given a backpack of like stuff.
How many brochures and how
Yes.
much information, and then take this and go home and keep her alive now.
Yeah,
And you feel like you become a nurse. And
you
it's funny,
do.
when we wrote this question down, and obviously we were always going to ask you about Lila, I knew you'd remember every single detail from that day. I knew you'd remember everything down to everything you did that day and everything she did, because I remember everything down to the last second that happened on that day. And it's just,
It is.
so full on.
It is. Because it's kind of like I call it the pre-diabetes to the post. Like you're 2 different people because I had a 3-4 week old and that was my priority, was to keep him alive. But all I had to do was feed him breast milk and change his nappies.
He's easy.
Easy.
Yeah.
But with Lila, it was like all learning how to give her insulin it was pre-CGM as well. So you're finger pricking, getting up to finger prick. So I'd be getting up to like finger prick Lila, check her levels, give her whatever she needed, whether it was glucose or insulin, and then moving on to Ollie, breastfeeding him, changing his nappy, getting him down. But I'd know that for some reason he was just this baby that just went to sleep. Maybe he knew.
Did you sleep at all during that time?
No, I don't remember.
I think the first 4 months of Ella being diagnosed, I did not sleep one full night. I don't even think I slept 2 hours a night.
Really? Yeah.
I just couldn't.
And you can't switch off. Like,
There's no switching.
no,
The alarm.
no.
So you would have seen a lot of change through, like you said, there wasn't CGMs. I didn't realise there wasn't CGMs only 10 years ago. What?
Yeah.
So we're talking, no, hang on.
I think CGM's now 6 years, so
that
have
all it's
been
been?
funded. So people were accessing it, but they were self-funding, and so quite expensive.
Yeah, they
It's an
are. Yep.
expensive, but when it got funded, meaning that children got funded under 21 first, and then it went to adults. And yeah, so prior to the CGM, yeah, you literally had no idea what your child's glucose levels were unless you were finger pricking, checking. And then obviously if that was like a level that was like 3.2, you didn't know whether that was going up or down. So you would recheck after 15. It was like torture trying to keep awake in the
And then all the
night.
pricks on their fingers.
Yeah.
Ella had so many finger pricks in the first few months. Her fingers were dry. They were like
yeah.
not calloused, but just dry and
Yes.
flaky, and they're actually quite painful.
Yes,
Like
they
I did
are.
one of myself just to check mine, and I was like, wow, this actually hurts.
Yes, and a lot of parents end up moving to toes and things. It's because their
Toes would hurt more.
their
than
little
your fingers
fingers
wouldn't.
are like,
It just, I've done it before, I think I told you, and you think it stings. It
yes,
stings a lot. So for a child, that just must be horrific.
it is. It's hard.